Church, I exhort you, do not complain like the Israelites in the wilderness. Numbers 11 shows us both the nature of the sin of complaining and what God thinks of that sin. Verse 1 begins telling the story. It says, "And the people complained in the hearing of the Lord about their misfortunes. And when the Lord heard it, his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some outlying parts of the camp. Now, the rabble that was among them had a strong craving. And the people of Israel also wept again and said, 'Oh, that we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we had in Egypt that cost nothing, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our strength is dried up, and there is nothing at all but this manna to look at.' Moses heard the people weeping throughout their clans, everyone at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord blazed hotly." What does God think of this sin of complaining that we often are quick to excuse? God hates the sin of complaining. God's anger blazes hot against complainers, literally. And why is that? What's the nature of this sin that elicits such anger from God? Numbers 11 shows us the bitter root of a complaining heart. Complaining blames God for our problems. Or to put it another way, complaining attributes wrongdoing to the living God. It says, "You have treated me badly. You've only given us this accursed manna to eat for the past year. You are to blame for my past church hurt, or my poor health, or my lost hopes, or my strained relationships, or my grief. You have been unkind and ungenerous and unloving." God hates complaining because it smears his character. And if we think that God is treating us badly today, why would we trust him for future satisfaction? The complaining heart does not hope in God for future satisfaction, but in something else. For this reason, complaining is closely related to craving or lustful desires. It grumbles, "I crave meat," like the Israelites, "and I will not be happy or content or satisfied until I have some." Therefore, God hates complaining because it is a deadly, contagious infection that blames God, that slanders his character, and that drives his people away from true joy and toward idolatrous craving. What then is the antidote to this poison of complaining? It's contentment. If a complaining heart misremembers the past, a contented heart remembers our past desperation, enslaved as we were to our passions and lusts and given over to the condemnation of the law, and it remembers God's past saving faithfulness with thanksgiving. We have been given a great salvation. If a complaining heart blames God for present troubles, a contented heart trusts that our good and loving Father has designed our troubles for our good and for his glory. Deuteronomy 8:3 says, "And the Lord humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, and nor did your fathers know." Why did he do that? That he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. If the hope of a complaining heart for the future rests on some craving, a contented heart looks to the future and places its hope in God. The Israelites craved the meat of Egypt, but God had given them a great and sure promise of a broad land flowing with milk and honey. And church, we have been given a much greater promise than the Israelites, from the God who never lies. Therefore, I exhort you, do not complain. Combat complaining by rightly remembering the past, by setting your hope for the future on God's sure promises, and by recognizing your present troubles for what they really are. God's designed, humbling grace that gives us the opportunity to discover that God is truly satisfying. Amen.